The child found in the car has been rushed to the hospital. You're under arrest. Suddenly, the police arrived at my home with this shocking news, leaving me utterly dumbfounded. What? I don't have any kids. My confused response was met with an equally perplexed look from the officer. It seemed they had identified me as the car's owner from the license plate. The car was indeed registered in my name, but could it be? With a suspicion gnawing at my heart, I hurried to the hospital where the child had been taken. Lying on an emergency room bed was a boy of about 5, his breaths ragged and face flushed, yet his familiar visage sent my heart racing. From that moment on, this child would become the center of a major shift in my life. My name is Marie, a 33-year-old remote worker. My husband Brian and I met in a college club, started dating, and got married after graduation. Despite 10 years of marriage without being able to conceive and undergoing fertility treatments, it turned out I had difficulty having children. Kind-hearted Brian always said, "That's okay. We'll enjoy our lives together, just the two of us." My in-laws, too, were understanding, especially since my brother-in-law already had children, so they never pressured me. However, I felt guilty towards my own parents, who eagerly awaited grandchildren. Fortunately, living close to my childhood home, I made it a point to visit often, compensating for the lack of grandchildren. If only Trevor had a child. In fact, I have a younger brother, Trevor, 7 years my junior. But Trevor, being the much younger sibling, was spoiled and began hanging out with bad company in middle school, becoming overly wild. He complained about not wanting to be compared to his successful, academically inclined sister, though, from my perspective, our parents treated us both equally. Yet, my words fell on deaf ears, and after causing our parents endless trouble, Trevor stormed out at 20, declaring he was cutting ties with us, and vanished without a trace. Since then, I hadn't seen him, occasionally reminiscing over old photos of Trevor toddling after me as a child. Then, one day, the incident happened. While I was working from home, the doorbell rang persistently. Rushing to check the camera, I saw police officers standing outside. The child found in the car has been rushed to the hospital. You're under arrest. This sudden declaration left me stunned. What? I don't have any kids. Huh? My mind was swirling with questions. According to the police, a passerby noticed a car abandoned on the road with a child slumped inside, and a child was then urgently transported by ambulance. When I inquired about the location of the car, it was in front of my parents' house. One would think my parents would have noticed, but they were away on a trip, leaving their home unattended. The police had tracked down the car's owner through the license plate. However, while the car was registered in my name, the one using it was my brother. In the past, I occasionally lent my car to Trevor when he first got his license. He took it when he left home. Afterward, the car would only appear in front of my parents' house when it needed inspection. Despite saying, "We shouldn't spoil him," my parents worried he might struggle without a car and took care of the inspections on his behalf. And just like that, the car would disappear again. But who was the child left behind? Rushing to the hospital, I saw only a small head peeking out from under a blanket. Curly, wavy hair. At that moment, my heart skipped a beat. Flashes of my younger brother following me around as a child crossed my mind. Approaching the bed, I saw a boy, about 4 or 5, bearing a striking resemblance to Trevor. Could this child be? As I was pondering, my mother, currently on a trip, called in a panic. Trevor got in touch, asking us to look after his child. Since we weren't home, he left the child in the car, in this scorching heat. What should we do? I reassured my worried mother that the child had already been taken to the hospital and seemed to be doing okay, and she said she would return home immediately. I understood her urgency. This was no time for a vacation. This confirmed the child was my brother's, but when was he born? And who is the mother? I explained to the police, I believe he's my nephew, and decided to stay with the child. Despite several attempts, I couldn't reach my brother on his cell. The child moaned in discomfort. Poor thing, enduring such pain with his tiny body. A nurse handed me the clothes he had been wearing, now changed into hospital pajamas. They were tattered and filthy, with a Nico written on the tag. Nico's thin frame and the state of his clothes made it easy to imagine the dire circumstances he was raised in. In the evening, my mother rushed from her trip directly to the hospital, whispering Trevor, as she tearfully embraced him. Nico bore such a strong resemblance to my brother. The next day, Nico's condition improved, though he appeared very frightened. I gently asked him, "How old are you, Nico?" 5. He answered, spreading out one hand and adding fingers. "Wow, you said that so well." I praised him, and for the first time, he cracked a small smile. Yet, Nico looked undernourished and pale, his body small for his age. According to the doctor, he had bruises all over his body. The police were about to be notified, but I convinced them to let me take responsibility until we could contact Trevor, sparing us from an immediate report. 3 days later, Nico was discharged. Not wanting to put him back in his old clothes, I had bought new ones, which made his neat features stand out even more, making him look incredibly adorable. Eventually, I managed to get through to Trevor, but the call was filled with loud noise. "How could you leave him in the car under the blazing sun? He was taken to the hospital." "So what? He survived, didn't he?" "That's good enough. He had bruises all over his body. Did you do this?" "Nico is just clumsy. I was just disciplining him." Trevor's unapologetic response left me appalled. "He's only 5 years old. He's so dumb, can't even remember the alphabet. It's so frustrating, I thought I'd just leave him at our parents'." I was shocked at my brother demeaning his own son, thinking perhaps it was better they weren't together. Moreover, Trevor said, "I'm busy hitting the jackpot at the slots," and hung up. Nico, who had been watching anxiously, silently started to cry when I reassured him, "It's okay." At 5 years old, when kids typically throw tantrums and cry, Nico never once called for "daddy" or "mommy," which felt unsettling. Imagining the reason broke my heart. After discussing with my husband and parents, we decided to take Nico into our home. I prepared a kids' meal with hamburgers, hot dogs, and an omelet, topped with a little flag bearing a cartoon character. When I placed it in front of Nico, his eyes lit up. "I've never seen anything like this. Can I really eat it?" "Of course. It's made especially for you, Nico." Watching him eat with ketchup smeared around his mouth and a smile on his face was endearing. In the evening, my husband bathed with Nico, who splashed around joyfully. At night, as I read him a storybook in bed, he looked up at me with sparkling eyes but suddenly seemed anxious. "Can I stay here forever? I don't want to go back home." "Understood. You want to stay here, right?" Nico's nod of reassurance tugged at my heartstrings, nearly bringing me to tears. Day by day, he grew even more attached to my husband and me. Whenever I folded the laundry, he'd come by to help or try to carry my bags when we went shopping. Living together, it became clear he was a kind and wonderful child. My husband and I, having grown deeply attached, began to discuss adopting Nico if Trevor and his wife had no intentions of raising him. A check at the city office revealed Trevor and his wife had filed Nico's birth report, and on paper, they were a family living at my parents' address. We started consulting with the family court. About a month after we started looking after Nico, Trevor and a young woman visited us. "Hey! Thanks for taking care of Nico. I don't want to go back." Nico hid behind me the moment he saw them, clearly terrified from past experiences. Trevor, whom I hadn't seen in years, had a harsh look in his eyes and was dressed sloppily. The young woman with him, named Lisa, adorned in many piercings and flashy clothes, clearly lived a carefree lifestyle. "How did you find my house?" Got it from Mom. But wow, sis, living in such a nice place and all. We need to talk about Nico, let us in." Reluctantly, I let them in, given it was about the child. Trevor said he'd gotten together with this woman soon after leaving home and had married her. They had been moving around a lot, sometimes without a home, even living in their car at their worst. Trevor, eyeing the interior of my house, suddenly got to the point. "Heard from Mom you don't have kids. Married for 10 years and still nothing? Must mean you can't have any, right?" What are you getting at? We've got a proposition. If you want Nico, we might let you have him. Won't be free, though. The audacity to try and sell me his child, after previously wanting to dump him off because he was annoyed, left me seething with anger. Trevor. What do you think your child is? He's not some object. Oh? Look who's talking all high and mighty. Haven't changed a bit, sis. It's because you were always so serious that I rebelled. Parents always took your side. Blaming others for your own failures is ridiculous. Shut up. Just give me the money. As Trevor raised his hand to strike me, Nico quickly stepped in front, spreading his arms to protect me. Seeing his brave stance, I was determined to protect him. I couldn't trade a child for money. But, to sever ties, I offered $20,000 from my savings as a settlement. I also made them sign an agreement to have no further contact with the child and got their consent for adoption. Lisa remarked, glad to be rid of such a problem child, her coldness astonishing me. After completing the procedures, they took the money, smirked, and disappeared. Thus, Nico truly became our child, and we completed all legal formalities. The days that followed were filled with happiness. Nico grew healthy and brought endless joy to our lives. We discovered his talents and sought to nurture them. However, 15 years later, another incident occurred. Trevor and his wife showed up again. Trevor, now a gaunt figure with unkempt hair and beard, looked older than his 41 years. The woman was no better, her makeup faded, dressed in grimy clothes and torn sandals, clearly down on their luck. I had a bad feeling about their visit, especially with my reliable husband away at work. What do you want? We need a sum of money. Why should I give you money? I was shocked. That Nico, whom I thought was a fool, got into a prestigious university's medical school. Trevor happened to meet someone from his neighborhood at a tavern and heard about Nico's achievement. In fact, Nico was incredibly smart, always at the top of his class from elementary through high school, and even got straight into a renowned university's medical school. It's none of your business anymore, is it? It's a big deal. He's my son, after all. If he's such an excellent son, I thought I'd take him back. What? Seeing my astonished face, Trevor smirked. If you dislike it, how about giving me $50,000, sis? Didn't I give you $20,000 15 years ago? That's different. I can't give you such money. When I firmly refused, Trevor grabbed me by the collar and threatened me, saying, "Do you want to get hurt?" My heart ached more than my body at how utterly rotten my brother had become. Then, someone grabbed Trevor's arm and shouted, "Stop it." It was Nico, now 20 years old and grown strong. Trevor was easily overpowered and ended up sprawled on the floor. My brother's wife, seeing the grown-up Nico, cooed, "You've grown so much. I'm your mom. I've wanted to see you." But Nico firmly declared, "My only parents are the folks of this house. Even though I was just 5 at the time, I remember the terrible things you did to me. It was only when I came to this house that I first felt loved. You're not my parents." Even after hearing Nico's words, the two didn't seem to give up, so I presented them with the agreement we made 15 years ago. Actually, the agreement stated, "You shall never again involve yourself with the child. If this is violated, legal action will be taken. You've broken the promise. I'll call the police." The two went pale, having completely forgotten about it, and made excuses. Then, trembling, Trevor said, "Actually, we're being chased by debt collectors. Without $50,000, we're in big trouble. And? Don't be so cold. Help me out, sis. You're rich, aren't you?" After threatening me, he now begged, turning the tables. "I cannot help you. The moment you abandoned Nico, you severed ties with me as well. I no longer have a brother. Please." I coldly turned him away. Helping Trevor now would only lead to him repeating his mistakes. As I was about to call the police because they kept insisting, the two reluctantly left the house. Later on, I heard through the grapevine that the brother and his wife were caught shoplifting. Apparently, it was habitual for them, and they ended up behind bars. Even after getting out, no one will be there to help them, and a miserable life awaits. Meanwhile, my husband, Nico, and I continue to live a happy and peaceful life. Seeing Nico say, "I want to be a doctor who can empathize with those suffering from illnesses," truly makes me happy. Thanks to Nico, we've been able to spend every day laughing. We hope to continue living happily as a family of 3.